Welcome to another episode of On Your Marks. Today's episode is all about Travis Kapernick, the Bundy Run, a developing 17-year-old runner from Bundaberg in mid-north Queensland. Travis has already run 100 kilometres in one go and plans to run even further in the near future. He has racked up to 250 kilometres per week in training. So, fasten your seatbelts and let's find out more about this mileage junkie. Welcome to the show, Travis.
Hey Sean, thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. So, when did your running journey begin? Is it true you've only been running for about 1 year?
Yeah, so I've always been into sports and whatnot. Grown up playing rugby league, cricket, soccer, basketball, just typical sports. There was a period where I wasn't doing any sports and nothing. About a year ago, I just I'll tell you this story. So it was 11 o'clock at night about a year ago, and I was scrolling on the phone and I saw a David Goggins inspirational reel, and I was just like, damn, this looks cool, this running thing. So I just decided to put the shoes on. I ran 9 kilometers that night to the local skate park and back. It's pretty hectic. Yeah.
Good for you. Well, I'm sure David Goggins has inspired plenty of people, and I know he's particularly popular with young people. I've coached quite a few young people, talked to a lot. I've got a daughter and a year younger than you, and particularly the boys seem to look up to David Goggins a lot. He's certainly a very powerful speaker, and he's the type of person who obviously his actions speak even louder than his words, even though he's a great public speaker, a really good author. He gets out there and does it, and he does amazing things. So you've got a good role model there. Now, you live in Bundaberg. I've never been to Bundaberg, even though I've moved up to the sunny coast. I've been up as far as Harvey Bay, and then I haven't been anywhere between Harvey Bay and Mackay. And then I've been to a lot of places north of Mackay, but I haven't been in between that mid-north Queensland coast. So, what's it like living in Bundaberg in that part of the world? Tell us a bit about that city that you live.
Yeah, so it's a beautiful city, has the bush, has the beach, and everything in between. So we have a small population, about 100,000 people, give or take. But we're pretty fortunate to live on a farm, and so I get to experience that bush sort of life, and I do love the beach. The beach is my happy place. I love it there. Love swimming, and yeah, everything about it.
I've heard about Bagara, is that how you pronounce it? Local
Yeah,
beach
Bagara.
there?
Yeah,
Yeah, is that the
Bagara.
best beach in the area?
Yeah, that's the best beach in the area. Um,
Yeah.
I go there. I try to get there every fortnight or so in the summer.
Okay. Is it non Repos or Mon Repos where the turtles are? I've read about or heard about the one precinct there near Bagara, is that right?
Yeah, Monrepos, that's home to where the turtles hatch. It's a big tourist spot in the area. Yeah, it's great. I went there once to see turtles hatch maybe 5, 6 years ago. It was beautiful, yeah.
Yeah, I bet that would be breathtaking watching new life forming there right before your very eyes with such a beautiful creature. What kind of farm do you live on?
So we do cattle, have a cattle
Yeah,
farm. Yeah.
yeah, awesome. Now, explain your current training. Run us through a typical training week, day by day, Monday to Sunday.
Yeah, so right now I'm trying to incorporate all aspects of training. So I've got regional cross country coming up. I'm trying to make the regional team. I've got a marathon coming up in 6 weeks, and I'm planning to do a 350-kilometer ultra run within the span of 6 months. So I'm incorporating speed work, easy runs, long runs. But yeah, typically a typical week for me would be Monday, an easy run, 10 to 12 kilometers. And then Tuesday, I'm big on intervals. I love intervals. So 6 by 1K, 6 by 800 sort of thing. Um, Wednesday, I usually do another easy run. That might be 8 to 12Ks, depending on how I'm feeling. Thursday, rest. Um, And then Friday I'll do a tempo sort of run. So like 5 kilometers at a tempo pace. And then the weekends where I do the big mileage, like I'll do a long run anywhere from 20 to 40 Ks. And yeah,
Awesome. So you do that on Saturday or Sunday, the really long run?
yes, spot on.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. And which or what kind of terrain do you run on when you do your long run?
So terrain wise, I'm lucky to live on some quiet roads. So I usually run on the roads, and there is a bush trail sort of behind my house I use for a little bit of trail workout. But Bundaberg is known to be a very flat region. So not a lot of hills to utilize in my training.
Sure. And you're mainly running through rural area?
Yep, spot on.
So pretty well head out from the farm and then you've got a loop, or is it an out and back? What's your favourite kind of a course?
Yeah, so out and back, I do find it a little bit boring. I do like the loops. I do live near the Botanic Gardens, so I do like going there quite often, and I am somewhat close to the Burnett River. So that's the main river system through Bundaberg. Running down there is beautiful of an evening.
I bet it would be. Now you do your speed sessions like your 6 by K or 800 metre reps. I've noticed you're hitting about 340 per kilometre pace. It's very quick for an ultra runner, which tells me as an old coach that you might have quite a bit of ability in the future as an ultra runner and maybe even over shorter distances. How much recovery would you typically have between those 3 or 4 minute efforts?
Thank you very much. That does mean a lot. But usually 2 minutes, and that's either a walk or a light jog, depending on how I feel.
Sure. I'd be very interested to know, have you ever tested yourself over anything shorter, like over 100 metres or 200 metres or 400 metres?
I used to be quite interested in the sprints when I was probably in primary school. I do remember going sub 12, I believe, when I was in grade 6 or 7. Yeah.
Wow. Gee, that's very quick. Very quick indeed. Awesome. And do you enjoy the speed work?
Sorry, what was that, Sean?
Do you enjoy doing the speed work on a Tuesday?
Not particularly, if I'm being honest.
No.
It is hard, very hard.
Yeah,
I do love the
yeah,
long, easy stuff.
yeah, for sure. That high heart rate type work and building up the lactic acid can be quite painful, and you've just got to grind your way through it, don't you? So it's not all easy mileage because a lot of ultra runners do just get out there and run at a lower heart rate and they run really long distances and they don't work on the speed. But these days, particularly at the pointy end of ultras, not only internationally but even at the Australian level, they are very good runners over shorter distances who are cleaning up the podiums in the ultra marathons. But I think the fact of the matter is you're only 17 and you're running ultra marathons, and that's the real eye-catching story here. So what have your longest 3 races or runs been in the last 12 months since you've taken up the running more seriously?
Yeah, so that's a great question. In I remember doing my first ultra, that was 50 Ks, and that was crazy tough. It was the first one. Pretty brutal. My feet had tons of blisters, and I was really dehydrated. I do remember I didn't take any water on me, so just running off pure heart there. Um, I did a 60 kilometer not long after that. That was closer to prepare myself for the 100 kilometer run I did a few months ago. And then the longest, obviously, is the 100 kilometer. That was brutal. So I had my family from Brisbane come up and help crew me for that. That was
Yeah.
really, really important. And it was about kilometer 91, I remember. And everything was just terrible. I was in pain. My feet were in trouble. I couldn't take food. I was just, but I had this tunnel vision. I wanted to complete this. And I just remember my dad was riding a bike alongside of me and we just did those 9Ks together. It was amazing, but brutal.
Well, you should be very proud of yourself gutsing it out and being out there for so long and covering the 100 kilometres. Where did the course go? What did the course entail?
So You'll call me crazy for this, but there's this 1 kilometer cycling loop in Bundaberg, and we
Yeah.
try to just do that 100 times. But we ended up going into the park a few times to break the monotony. So it was more like 95 laps of the track and a little bit extra.
Believe it or not, I mean, there are 24-hour, you've probably heard about them, 24-hour track races on 400-metre tracks, so even a smaller circle than what you run on. And I don't know whether they still have it, but they used to have a caboolture in southeast Queensland between where I live and Brisbane, a caboolture 24-hour, and they went around about a 1 mile, it might have been a 2K loop, so they did many laps around there. And they've had the Narrabeen all-nighter where they go on a 5K out and back, or 2.5K out, 2.5K back, up and down, up and down. And I think there might be an epic event in New York City where they run, I think, on a 2 mile or about a 3K loop, and they just keep going and going for weeks on end. So maybe 2,000 miles, or it might be it's definitely an epic ultra anyway. So you're not the only ultra runner to have done laps, but look, I think crazy could be part of it. I mean, I think people who do really long stuff like you're doing, there might be a degree of craziness there, but you've got to be prepared as well. For example, like you did all the training to prepare, but you need to be prepared nutrition-wise as well. Did you have any kind of nutrition or food plan leading into it and during that 100K?
Yeah, so I remember my first marathon, I really struggled. My gut really struggled taking gels and taking like lollies and sort of thing. Um, but for this ultra block I did, I was taking lots of food on the run. I was stopping in, practicing the pit stops, eating sandwiches, eating lots of lollies and fast acting sugars and carbs, and it just got my gut like prepared. Like I could I could take on 1,000 calories in a sitting and just be able to keep going. Like, and that's a real advantage I can have in the future if I'm able to stomach a lot of food.
Huge advantage there. You've probably read about a lot of ultra runners who can't stomach a lot of food, and they either throw it up or it goes out the other end, and or they just feel too queasy or too sick to take anything in. So they'll reject their crew who are trying to pretty well force feed them, and because they're rejecting the food and or throwing it up or pooing it out really quickly, they're not really getting the right nutrition, then their body's not getting the right energy, and they bonk, and they bonk pretty badly pretty quickly, and that can be the end of their campaign unless somehow they can regather and eventually get food in. So yeah, look, if your stomach is that strong and your body's able to handle all of that, then good luck to you. You've ticked quite a few of the big boxes right there already.
Thank you.
Now, I see that you started 142-kilometre training run at midnight. What was the idea of that, and how did that end up?
Yeah, that was crazy. So I'd been thinking about it for the past week just to do something mentally a bit more challenging, And so it was a Monday night, or yeah, Monday night, so it was a school night, and I just set off at midnight. I planned to sleep, right? So I went to bed at 6 p.m., but I could not fall asleep. So I just called it quits at 10:30 and I just got ready for that run. It was crazy, to be honest. It was really lonely. It was hard on the mind. And I went up my road and back. It had just some street lights, so I used that for lighting because my head torch was pretty weak at the time.
Wow, there you go, huh? Yeah, those head torches, they come in handy during dark runs, not only ultra runs, but at the moment, a lot of Australian runners, we're in our winter, and people will be getting out before school or work, or after school or work, even for a 5 or a 10K. Head torch can come in very handy if you don't have many street lights around. And often you'll need either a spare battery or, a charger, a portable charger or something to keep it rolling along. Otherwise, you can end up in a bit of trouble. Yeah, have you ended up in a bit of trouble at all on any of these long runs in training where you've been out there in the dark, or you've run out of food or anything like that, or have you generally been prepared and things have gone okay?
I try to be prepared, but one run does come to mind. It was early along in my ultra running experience. And I remember just bonking, like feeling really ill in the stomach and in the head. And I had to call my dad about 34 kilometers into a run I was planning to do 45 to 50, somewhere in there. Yeah, that was a bit scary.
Yeah, right, there you go. Eh? You're lucky for Dad. Yeah, look, I did read the first Ned Brockman book. I think he might have written a second one, but anyway, the first Ned Brockman book, which I really enjoyed reading, and particularly like I'm a former Sydney boy and didn't leave Sydney until pretty much I turned 50. So I lived there the majority of my life. Then I had 10 years in Melbourne. So I know Sydney really well, and I know the part of Sydney quite well where he lived near. He lived near Centennial Park, and I did a lot of training there, and a lot of coaching too. And Ned ended up, and I think he's doing a lot of training in Centennial Park. But before he moved out there, he lived out, I think, might have been west of Dubbo or out Dubbo way, but a good 70 or 80k from the nearest town. And when he was getting into ultra running, when he was fairly young, a bit older than you, I think he might have been about 18 or 19. Don't know if you've read about this, but he told his mum, might have told his dad as well, that he wanted to run to Macca's. And I think Macca's was in the nearest town, which I think was Dubbo, which was about 70k away. And I think his mum had an eye out for him, and he might have had his phone on him, and she was a bit worried about him. But she might have had, one way or another, had a tracking device on the phone. But he went through with his word. He made it to Macca's, even though he knew that his mum would come and pick him up if he got into any trouble. But she didn't have to actually help him at all until he made it to the town and made it to McDonald's, and then he got the food and the ride home. Anyway, you're lucky you got parental and family support there along the way. That can always be helpful in when you're doing long stuff. Because there can be a danger element. Things can go wrong when you're out there for a long time. If you get injured, or all of a sudden you're sick, or you had an accident with a vehicle or something, God willing that won't happen to you, but things can happen. You do need a backup, don't you? You need a bit of support there, because there's a danger element when you're out there for so long, particularly with fatigue being a major factor there. When you're tired, really tired, things can happen. You can fall asleep when you're running, can't you? Or get weary, dizzy, all that sort of thing. Lose your footing. So, what you do a lot of running. What would your average pace be when you're doing your aerobic runs on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and when you're doing your long runs? What pace would you average on those easy runs?
Yeah, so I like to practice a lot of zone 2 work. So keeping my heart rate between 120 beats per minute and 140 beats per minute. So that pace usually looks like anywhere from 6 minute pace to 7 minute pace, depending on the heat, like all sorts of factors,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You could have a lot of experience a lot of heat and humidity in the Bundaberg area, no doubt. Like you get many days right throughout the year, well above 25 degrees and often above 30 with a really high humidity. So I think that's a really good pace actually for a zone 2 in a tough long distance running environment. You've trained or a lot on your own, but have you ever trained with a group, a squad, or with a coach?
No, never. I've been self-coached. I've done everything on my own, really.
Yeah,
And I like that. I like that where I can zone out and I can just focus on me and I can think about what I want to think about. But it always does help running with people sometimes, like to talk to break monotony, etc.
for sure. Yeah. Do you have any local running buddies that you pair up with, or on any given run?
No one my age runs really, hey. But
Yeah.
no, I don't.
No, you're out there running solo, and well, massive kudos to you there. Now, are you on Strava?
I am on Strava.
I'll have to look out for you. I'll have to begin following you on Strava. I've checked out your Instagram and had a look at your videos, which are really good, by the way. And I recommend
Thank
to
you.
anyone listening to on your marks here to check out Travis's videos there. And what's your Instagram?
My Instagram is trav_running, all lowercase. That's where you can find
Yeah,
me.
yeah. I recommend people to find Trav there on or Travis on Instagram because they're very mainly videos, aren't they? The content, and they're quite entertaining, and you've got quite a lot of insight and teaching really to not only people your age, but I mean, I even found it beneficial for myself. So I think a lot of people will be inspired and motivated by your content and what you're putting out there. So well done. I mean, they're in a fairly simple format, but you've definitely organised all the content there. So well done on that. Keep up the good work. And yeah, I do recommend that the listeners and the viewers here get in there and check out Travis's Instagram account.
Thank you, Sean.
Now, yeah, have you run off any races, like actual bona fide ultra marathon races on the calendar in 2026 or 2027, for example? I know you are studying for your QCE at the moment, aren't you? So it's kind of hectic for you, and travelling might be hard. Have you eyed off anything before and or after you do your final exams for year 12?
So for 2027, I look to be the youngest ever Moab 240 finisher. That's my goal. That's my big goal in this next 2 years. That's what I'm working towards. The record, I believe, is 21 years old, so I'll be 18, maybe 19 at the time. But you see, because I am under 18, there isn't much ultra races I can do at the moment due to age restrictions. But I would like
Sure.
to do some. Ooh, I don't. The name doesn't come to mind, but there's a lot of 100 milers around like the Brisbane hinterland area. I'd love to do.
Yeah, there's I know there's a hundred miler called the Blackall 100.
Yeah, I've
Um,
heard of that one.
yeah, not too far from where I live in the Blackall Ranges, which is pretty well the Sunshine Coast mountain range, and that's on every October. When do you turn 18?
I turn 18 this December.
So you'll be a little bit too young because I think you do have to be 18. So that might be something you could try in 2027. So the Blackall 100. They might still have that Caboolture Ultra as well. Have you thought about doing any backyard ultras?
Yeah, I recently watched BPN's Last One Standing. That was amazing, and that really
Yeah,
inspired me to possibly enter a backyard somewhat soon. There is a backyard ultra that does let under 18s. I believe it's called the Dead Cow Gully and it ultra marathon, and it's in Gayndah. So that
yeah,
could be a possibility in the next year or so.
and that's in Queensland too, so you wouldn't have to travel too far to get to that one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, so
about.
about that one. And I think that might be the premier backyard ultra in Australia too. They had a big one down in Victoria, not too far from Seymour, about an hour and a half out of Melbourne, on a really tough course. They basically had to run up. I think that the lap or the yard was only about 3.5 or 4k rather than the 6.4 or whatever they normally do on a flatter course. But this was pretty well up a mountain, or like a, maybe not officially a mountain because I think they have to be 330 metres or whatever to be a mountain, but it wouldn't have been too far off a mountain and back down again every lap on a farm, but one of those massive hills you get on a farm where it's pretty well mown all the way. So you could see the runners. I think they filmed them. I was watching a bit of it. I had a friend doing it, and you could pretty well see, and the cameras and the drone on the drones and whatnot could film the whole thing because it was all there was barely a tree on this huge hill, and they go up and down, up and every lap they had the hour to get through it before they got to go again if they were lucky enough to complete it in under an hour. So that might be one to eye off if you enjoy running hills as well. So now you called it is it the Moab 240?
Spot on, yeah.
Is that about 2 weeks ago?
No, I believe it
No.
happens in could be October.
Okay. Yeah, they had another one of a similar distance about 2 weeks ago in America, which I'd eyed off, and I thought it might have been that, but might have had a different name. Yeah, they're quite a big culture for ultra running in America and Europe. Have you looked at doing maybe the UTMB one day? The
100%.
ultra.
That would be really cool to do.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Do you represent Australia when you do that, or is that just like an individual sort of thing?
I don't think they have national representation there. I think the elite runners typically run for their shoe sponsor. But they do have World Mountain Running and World Trail Running Championship. Not normally as far as 100 miles. I don't think they might. And they do have World 100k championships, and they have World 24-hour championships. I think the 100k would typically be on a 5 or 10k loop, sometimes a smaller loop on the road, and usually dead flat. 24-hour champs would normally either be on a track or like a 400-metre track or something like a 1k loop. And they even have World 48-hour championships as well. So all those world ones I mentioned there, you can run for Australia. And in the World Mountain Running and World Ultra Trail Championships, I think the races, I think there might be a marathon or around that 40k, 45k mark, and then I think they have a longer one now as well. And then they have shorter trail races as well, like just up and down mountains, which are as short as 7k and up to like maybe 15k. So yeah, that you can run for Australia on a whole range of things there, which are either ultra or a bit shorter and or much longer than the marathon. So is there any one race in the world that you dream of? Is the Moab the one which stands out as a pinnacle for you?
Yes, there is this race I've been eyeing off for the past year-ish, and it's been doing Perth to Sydney. I want to get the record for that eventually one day. Perth to Sydney, that's about
Yeah.
3,800 kilometers across Australia. Yeah,
So who has that record? Is that Ned Brockman or another runner who's got
that is
that?
that is William Gouge. He owns that record, and he broke that in May last year.
Okay. Did he break Ned's record or did somebody else hold it before Ned?
So Ned did hold it for a while, but then there was a guy called Chris Williamson, I believe, and he broke
Okay.
Ned's record by a few days, and then William broke
Wow.
his record.
Very good, G. That's I think they're running very quickly, aren't they, per day? Yeah, like running a lot of covering a lot of mileage per day. That's the kind of thing where you need a crew, like a really good crew, a hardy crew there to help you along every day, like in a van, and travel that entire epic journey with you from what would be Perth to Bondi Beach. Is that the typical route?
Yeah, Cottesloe Beach to Bondi Beach, which is Perth to
Yeah,
Sydney.
they've got an official route. An old friend of mine, Paul Every, he was in a committee that I think started up an event called the Race of Fire, which was on about 25 years ago, and I think they raced over a circuit very similar to that way back then, and they had people coming from overseas. It was actually a race. People had crews and the whole thing, and they ran from Perth to Cottesloe, and I don't think they did it in stages. I think it was like go to woe. And another famous foot race on Australian roads was the Sydney to Melbourne. Have you ever heard about that one? Sponsored by Westfield Shopping Centres.
Yeah, I've heard it. Is it Cliff Young? Yeah.
Cliff was the legend, the old, I think 62-year-old from the Great Otway Ranges. He lived around on a farm not too far from Colac in Victoria, probably a 2-hour drive from Melbourne. And he trained in gumboots on the farm daily, and then he got out there and he ended up beating all the top ultra runners in the world. And then I think he ended up giving his prize money away to all the runners in the field. He might have divvied it out to all the other people in the field, which was really kind. Became a legend. Got a lot of media attention and all that sort of thing. And I think the money ran dry eventually. The road's very busy from Sydney to Melbourne, as you can imagine. And I think they needed quite a bit of money to get approval to get a lane blocked off for all the runners and their crew, and they needed a lot of money for other things as well, and that fell through, so they don't have that one anymore. But when you're running from Perth to Sydney, I think the majority of the roads are pretty quiet until the final, maybe a couple of hours, and then even then they can keep it fairly quiet until not too far before the end. So they can, you can do something like that as a one-off thing and time it. Yeah. So, what do you enjoy most about endurance sports and ultra running at this point, in the early stage in your ultra running career?
That's a good question. I love the purpose side of it. like I was saying earlier, there was a point before I started running where I didn't have much of a purpose. I didn't do sport anymore. And yeah, I found purpose in running. I also love the peace of mind. Like your mind goes quiet to the outside. Like you might have had a bad day. You can just channel that emotion into your run. You know, it's lovely.
I'm very happy that you've found something that can make you feel that inner peace. That's really good. Who is your favourite current runner in the world? Do you check out what's going on via the media or via socials, and do you have a favourite runner?
Yeah, it's Will Gouge actually, the guy that ran across Australia that has the record. Like
Yeah.
he seriously inspires me to he inspired me to take up ultra running. Like before I saw him, I was like, oh yeah, maybe this thing ends at marathon, but no, there's more. Yeah, he's amazing. I love his mindset, the way he goes about things. Seems like a really decent guy. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, it's amazing how many young people you speak to, and the catalyst for them running was somebody who inspired them, and normally it's a really good runner that they look up to. So I'm glad you've got Will there to light your flame, and obviously you're keeping it well alight now, and wanting to follow in his footsteps, so to speak. Now, do you follow any special diet on a day-to-day basis?
I just try to eat about 3,000 calories and upwards of that just to try and maintain my weight and size because I don't want to like lose too much muscle, lose too much weight. But the diet mostly consists of a lot of protein, a lot of carbs. I'm not too strict on myself at the moment. I follow the 80-20 rule. 80% of my food is clean, whole foods, and the 20% is um, I eat whatever, you know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, when you're burning so many calories from doing all that exercise, you can afford to have like one fifth of your food not overly natural and yeah, junk food, so to speak. Yeah, so that's fine because you do tend to burn that. But you don't want too much more of a percentage than that. Otherwise, it's no good for your health and it won't be highly beneficial for your performance either. Um, that's good. Now, on your long runs, you follow like you do up to 40k in training typically. You mentioned you do 20, 30, 40k on the weekend. Do you follow any training long run nutrition plan there, or you just follow take it day by day?
So I try to on my runs take a gel every 20-ish minutes as like a simple carb, but I will have a more complex carb on my longer stuff. Like I'll stop in at the home to make a sandwich or something. But the past week, 2 weeks or so, I've been experimenting with a homemade carb mix where I put sugar, water, salt, and lemon juice in a bottle, and I drink one of those every half hour.
Good on you. So you're very well organised there, and that'll stand in good stead on your training runs as well, and for your recovery too. Now, you're currently doing Year 12. Do you have any goals there for what you'd like to do, A, in your exams and B, after you finish Year 12?
Yeah, so exam wise, I'd like to probably average a B on all my subjects. I've come a long way with my results. I used to fail a lot of my classes back in year nine. I didn't really take it seriously. So yeah.
Sure.
But I'm thinking of becoming a police officer. That's a possible. But I really like to take my social media and expand that to a full-time income possibly one day. That'd be the dream.
Wow. Oh, good for you. Excellent. Well, yeah, I can see you appear to be a natural teacher there with what you're doing with that content so far. So that could be an option for you in the future there for sure. And do you want to keep living in the Bundaberg area for the in the immediate future after year 12?
No, actually, I'd like to move to Brisbane in the near future. That speaks to me. I've got family there. Hopefully, they're watching
Yeah.
this podcast. But
Yeah,
Brisbane speaks to me. I feel like I like that city and has that kind of hinterland area. I like that.
sure.
And if I did
Yeah,
want to, And if I did want to pursue being a police officer, the police academy for Queensland is located in Brisbane.
Okay, well that sounds like a pretty wise move if you did want to become a policeman to move down there. I mean, you'd have to anyway, and then just wait and see what life holds for you. Now, so obviously you've ramped up your schoolwork to improve your grades, and you're looking at getting Bs now, which I think is really good. How do you balance your training, all that training you're doing, and your schoolwork?
Look, it's not a bit sad to say, but you got to sacrifice some things, you know, like I sacrifice social outings with friends. I sometimes, unfortunately, have to sacrifice sleep to do assignments or runs. Yeah,
Yeah,
but I just try and stay on top of things, utilize my mornings.
yeah, good for you. Have you found that running's helped you become more disciplined overall with completing things like homework tasks and study and revision and that kind of thing?
100%. I'll be sitting down
Yeah,
doing an assignment. I don't want to do this. Oh, but Travis, you ran 100 Ks once. You can do this.
good on you. So it's toughened you up mentally,
Yeah.
if nothing else. That's really good. Okay, now what strength work are you currently doing? You hitting the gym or doing any exercises apart from running?
Yeah, so I used to take bodybuilding really seriously. Like that was my passion when I was about 14, 15 years old. But I've given that up a bit. I do train in the gym 2 days per week. But if I can't get to the gym, I'll usually do some body weight stuff at home. One day is lower, one day is upper.
That sounds pretty wise. And I think with ultra running, you do have to do a fair bit of strength work as an injury prevention measure as much as anything else, but it can help with your performance as well. You know, it'll help you with your speed and your power. And, you know, you'll find you'll need to do specific work depending on courses that you're aiming to complete later on. So you might need to do more quad or glute work if you're going in a really hilly course, step work, that kind of thing. Or you might need to work on plyometrics that will help you more with flat running and flat speed and rhythm if you're looking at more flat races later on. And do you do any other aerobic training, any cross training at all for
Well,
your?
I used to have a bike, but that's currently broken. I used to like go on once a week, just do like a 20-ish K bike ride to replace a rest day, you know? But I
Yeah,
cannot swim for the life of me, Sean. I'm struggling
okay.
swimming. I'd love to be able to swim.
Well, that might be something when you've got a bit more time. If you end up having an interim period after your year 12, you might be able to teach yourself or go and do a few lessons and try something like that. One thing I recommend people do actually is deep water running, where you can wear a deep water running belt. They're not meant to be a safety device. They're not meant to be like a rescue thing, but they do keep you afloat. You wear them around your waist like you'd wear a belt, but they're bigger, they're chunkier, they're made out of like a foam, an EVO kind of material, and they keep you upright. And you can do deep water running where your feet don't touch the bottom of the pool or the bottom of the ocean, and you kind of tread water with high knees and running arm action. You might even want to try that. You don't need to be a great swimmer to do that. You really need to just teach yourself to deep water run, and you'll have that flotation thing there anyway. That's a good cross-training method. Okay, now what are 3 tips that you would give fellow teenagers about life in general? It might be about exercise, but what would any 3 tips you'd like to give fellow teenagers?
That's a good question. First one, I'd say effort will take you very far in this modern generation because I feel like a lot of us, my age people, they're not willing to put in work, put in effort to whatever they want to achieve in life. So yeah, definitely that's a big one.
Yeah.
Definitely consistency because I started off just doing 5Ks and I hated it. It was tough. I'd blow up. It's just struggle. But I was so consistent throughout my whole first year of running and I could build myself up to do big mileage. That's a big one. And implement that into everything, consistency into everything. And then my third tip would have to be do what you love. I feel I found what I loved through running. But if it's school that makes you happy, do well in school. Or if school, if you don't like school and you don't like university, don't feel pressured to go to university. Go find something you love, pursue your interests.
I really like your tips there, Travis. I think they're very wise, and I'm sure people listening would be able to take at least one of them on board, if not all 3 tips. Well done. Now, before we complete the interview, I'm going to fire off to you some really quick questions, and you'll have to choose an option out of the two that are presented in each question. So, are you ready for these?
I'm ready, Sean.
Wonderful. All right. Firstly, what's the best bird, a kookaburra or a magpie?
That's a tough one because I used to think when I was younger, magpies are terrible because they'd swoop me when I was on my bike and stuff. But I've recently been feeding our magpies that come to our house. So I'd have to say magpies.
Good stuff. How about Nike or New Balance running shoes?
100% Nike. I've always loved Nike.
Good, eh? Cameron Myers, the miler, or Killian Jorne, the ultra runner?
I'd have to say Killian there. I love what he's done. He did Moab actually last year.
Okay. Bundaberg or the Sunshine Coast?
Oh, have to say Sunny Coast. It's beautiful.
Sure is. Well done. England or Kenya?
Kenya.
Meat pies or pizza?
Meat pies, definitely.
Fishing or surfing?
Fishing.
Cycling or skateboarding?
Cycling. I wish I could skate.
Fair enough. Board shorts or jeans?
That's tough. It is pretty hot in Bundy, so I'd have to say board shorts.
Why is there? Studying or sleeping?
That's a no-brainer, sleeping.
Yeah, teenagers definitely sleep a lot, and particularly ultra-running teenagers, no doubt. Chocolate or vegetables? Good, Abe. 100-kilometre road race or the Western States 100-mile trail race?
Western States for sure. I've never done 100 miles, so I'd love to do that.
Uh-huh. Long runs or track work?
Long runs.
Chin-ups or push-ups?
Push-ups. You can do more reps.
And finally, sheep or goats?
Sheep. Lovely animal. I went to New Zealand recently and I saw a few sheep. Beautiful animal.
Great answers there, Travis. Well, great interview. Well done. Now, in closing, we can see that Travis is a young runner who is not only an athlete, but also an inspiration to many other runners and many people his age. He's a natural teacher. He trains in a town in the tropical north with challenging running conditions. Travis runs distances in 1 week that most runners his age would average in 1 month, or 2 even. We wish him the very best of luck for a bright running future. So thank you for coming on, Travis.
Thank you, Sean. Means a lot.
No problem. In closing now, thank you for watching and listening, folks. Don't forget to keep your toes behind the line at the start and to always run hard right through the finishing line. What you do in between is up to you. Goodbye. See you later, Travis.
Thank you.